Okay. All right. Mario, you can see my full screen.
Yes, I can see it.
All right, let's get going, guys. You're welcome, everybody. Glad you could take a few minutes to view our presentation today. We're talking about a topic near and dear to my heart. It's actually at the core of everything that I do, and it should be at the core of everything that you do, right? And most of us start off with this experience is working really, really hard in our contracting business. All right. But we're still broke. I can say that I successfully managed to do that for over a decade. And a couple of key things in, solving that problem within my own business, but also watching many, many of my clients go through this experience. And the good news is it always comes down to the same key issues. So hopefully today you can relate to some of these common problems, as well as start to work on simple frameworks and ways to change that outcome. Um, Out of curiosity of everybody on the call, all right, how many of you guys have felt strapped in your business, felt stuck in your business, working harder for less and less money? Who's ever been in that
Yep.
position, right? Right. So first, let's kind of address the belief, right? Most contractors believe if I just get more jobs, I'll make more money. If I just find the right guys, I will make more money. All right. And the reality of it is, more jobs equals more chaos, payroll stress, and not more profit. All right. Even guys that are, I see this all the time that have a profitable business, okay, at a lower scale that want to grow the business and find themselves in a worse situation. Okay. And I've personally been through this. One that sticks out to the most to me in my own personal journey. I can remember vividly in about 2012, we were doing, 10 million at the time, and I lost 100 grand that year. So it wasn't a really great contractor at that point. And had to scale down our business for the obvious reasons of losing money. Following year, we did about $2 million and I made 300,000. So again, to put that into perspective, I cut away the things that were not serving me and were more vanity, right? The vanity that sometimes we face is getting caught in that revenue driven goal, right? I want to get to 2 million. I want to get to 3 million without focusing on profit. Okay. And there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just profit, it's more to it. And this is what I'm hoping that you guys will get out of this call. All right. Um, but here's the wall, right? Cash flow, when it collapses, when payroll is due, but payments are late, right? So again, you may actually be profitable, you may actually be earning money and growing, okay, but you are still cash broke. All right. And this is what I see quite often, even if you're protecting your margins, you're getting the right price, and you can't tell me how many guys come in and say, hey, but I'm charging more than everybody else. I can't charge more. I'm charging more than everybody else. All right. And what we look at right there is okay, that may actually be the case. And when we look at the job costing, it's in the range to be profitable. But they actually have a big cash flow problem. All right. And again, it comes down to this old saying, it takes money to make money. That's absolutely true, but there's ways to optimize your cash flow, all right, so that we're keeping money in the bank and making sure that we're not getting caught up financing projects. Okay. One of the big symptoms of growth, all right, is getting caught in those situations where we become the finance C. And Usually at that point, we haven't accumulated enough capital to be in that position. Okay. So this is where we end up being on this treadmill, constantly, running, working harder and harder, and not seeing any reward or profit in the business. Okay. No money left over. And the stress at home grows, your family feels it too. Okay. We should always be thinking about not just ourselves, all right, but the impact that these things are having on our family, on our health, all right, on our well-being, on our life experience, all right. It's not just about money. So again, it's easy to get caught up and chase it, all right. Very difficult, and it takes a lot of discipline, all right, to control it. All right. Notice I said discipline and not drive. Right. So I'll share another quick story with you guys. We recently have been working with a remodeler here in Toronto. Did about $1.2 million in revenue last year, and made less than 60K in profit. Okay. The real problem that he was having is that all it would take is two customers not making their payments on time to absorb that 60K in profit that he had in the business, and all of a sudden he's stealing from Peter to pay Tom. So not a very scalable model, very low profit, high risk, high stress. In this situation, you're actually better off going to get a job, right? Somebody's going to pay you more, all right, to work for them, and you can get rid of all that stress. If you're not interested in actually running a business that is profitable on everything that you do, all right, then you're going to find yourself in this group, right? You're going to find yourself in your category. And it's not unusual to be a seven-figure business, all right, with five-figure returns, all right? So the reality of it is, pricing and cash flow were broken, right? Bottom line, there was no way to escape that. He was already doomed in his pricing before he even started, right? So everything he got on bad pricing, on bad structure, and bad, cash controls, all right, we're just sinking him deeper and deeper, and he's working harder and harder to make up that slack. Okay. So the shift, it starts with you. Starts with what you want and what you are prepared to accept. All right. The first thing is we have to remove the ego. All right. There's a lot of ego that gets tied to the volume, or the guys that we think we take care of, the employees that we have, the payments we've got to make. But there's a lot of vanity and ego tied to our businesses. And I've met very few contractors that haven't developed this in one way or another. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's not about the quality of the work that you can do. It's not about any of these things that our ego can be tied to. All right. It's not about the volume that you do. All right. It comes down to one simple thing. If you were in business, your responsibility is to return a profit to your shareholder. All right. That's you. If you're not thinking about those things in every transaction and every decision that you're making, all right, you will have a very difficult long road to figuring it out. The business will make you figure that out because that is a system we work within, right? The sooner you decide that I'm going to be profit focused, cash flow focused, systems focused, all right, the easier your business will become to run. All right. The more you reject that as being the three or four main things that you need to focus on, and you focus on things that don't matter as much, all right, the harder the road will be. Okay. So revenue is vanity. Doesn't mean anything. I don't care how much revenue you tell me you're making. Show me your profit. Okay. Show me how much you retain, and we'll decide if you have a good business or not. Show me how much cash you have on hand. Okay. Like I said, I've met very, very, well structured, well managed businesses that have major cash flow problems. All right. And they're a week away from bankruptcy. Can you imagine that? Right. So they're growing. All right. Their jobs are profitable on paper in job costs, but they can't control their cash flow. All right. So any profit they're making is literally being, shipped back out the other way, and it's all going into the growth. That is a terrible way and a very quick way to dissolving your company. Okay. And there's plenty of examples along the way of guys doing just that. All right. And, we call that chasing. All right. We're chasing revenue, we're chasing, the opportunity, but we're not paying attention to the things that are going to actually take us out. More businesses go out of business as a result of cash than they do as a result of not having profit or a result of any other factors you can name. All right. Most businesses go out of business because they didn't know how to manage their cash flow. Okay. The reality is systems, not more leads. Okay. Again, adding more leads, more opportunity, more business on top of this broken system, all right, will ultimately lead to collapse. It's very simple. We're all in the construction business here, so we understand the importance of a strong foundation. Okay. At your foundation, at your core, all right, needs to be your core values of how you're going to operate your business. Those are the things that guide us. All right. Profit needs to be one of those core values. And it's absolutely okay to make that a core value in your business. In fact, I recommend everybody here does that. Otherwise, what the hell are you doing here? All right. Go run a charity. Go serve at a soup kitchen. Go do something else that serves that need. But in the business arena, you are here to make a profit, all right? And that needs to be first and foremost into every decision that you make. I don't care how you want to slice it. I don't care how you want to hear it, all right? But that's exactly what it needs to be. Systems, people, these are the things that are going to actually create manageable, scalable growth that doesn't involve full chaos and all of the time that you have left in this world. Okay. So let's just put this into perspective for a second. Okay. We have revenue pouring in. All right. But we have a whole bunch of leaks in our bucket. All right. And these leaks aren't being addressed. All right. We're not fixing the leaks. We may not even be aware they're there. First one, bad pricing. Okay. First place to start. Right. Again, guys come in and they tell me all the time, but I'm pricing the most in the market. Bullshit. Show me. Prove it to me. How do you know? More importantly, it doesn't matter what anyone else is pricing in the market. You know what matters? All right. Is that you can actually measure on every single job if you were profitable. Okay. The only thing you can manage, all right, is the thing that you can track. All right. We all have a responsibility in our business to be able to track whether we're making money or not. And guess what? When you start to focus less on what other people are doing, what the market tells you you should charge per square, what the market or what your buddy, your accountant, your bookkeeper, what all these guys say, and start looking at your actual numbers to understand the real profit, all right, you're all pretending to be in business. I'm sorry. And more importantly, you are putting yourself in even bigger risk. All right. Think of the insanity of just accepting what somebody once told you was a fair market value, right? Again, I see this all the time, but the market says to pay it's $500 a square foot. Okay, cool, right? No job costing, no way to validate that. How do you actually know that you're earning what you should be? All right. And this all comes down to a bad pricing, a bad estimating system. That is where 99% of the problem starts to occur. All right. Next to that, when we're in that situation and we're trying to grow, we're trying to expand our business, the next place I see a lot of companies bleed severely, all right, is not understanding their labor factors. Okay. Not understanding, all right, that the guy that you work side by side with, all right, for maybe the last 5 years is not going to be as efficient on his own as he was with you, all right? Not considering that we have administrative costs and escalating overhead expenses as we're growing and expanding, all right? Not considering that the efficiency of your labor, if you're by the hour, will drop, all right, as your business grows. All right. I see this all the time. They don't adjust that pricing model. They don't make any controls in place. They don't, if they do have staff and employees, they're not setting goals and targets. They're not monitoring, they're not measuring to see if they're actually getting returns on this labor. And thus we get a ton of inefficient labor loss. Okay. And again, you want to have a fast track to cash flow problems where cash flow is already slow. All right, this leads to the next problem. We're busy, we forget the other main thing, collecting cash, right? How many of you guys struggle with collecting your cash? Right? Maybe give me a one in the chat. Be honest now. All
Yep.
right. Even the best of companies, they have problems with collecting their cash. And you know why they have those problems? Because they haven't set the rules to the game from the beginning of the transaction. Very simple, right? Every contract we sign, every contract I hope all my clients sign, at least I encourage them to or enforce them to, all right, payment schedules. You want people playing by the rules of your game, not you playing by the rules of their game. All right. Those are things we negotiate, but it always needs to be clear before we start. It needs to be planned. It needs to be understood. All right. If we don't know how the risk that we're essentially putting out, all right, will be returned to us, right? That is essentially putting on a blindfold, driving down a major highway, and hoping you're not going to crash into somebody head on. Okay. And it is no other way I can describe this. And this is 100% again. When we want to solve problems, it can be as easy as this. Slow collections, me equals slow cash flow. All right. Some of you guys, again, get our ego involved in this. I've seen this plenty of times, maybe not all of you, but some of you for sure, where we decide, hey, we're going to bill at the end of the job. Okay. I've actually had people tell me that that builds trust with their clients. Okay. In what world? It actually, believe it or not, leaving a large sum of money to the end of a project actually takes away trust. All right. It destroys relationships as well. And it's a very simple, easy way to understand this. The more money somebody owes you at the end of any project, the more resistant they are to hand it over. Doesn't matter how good of a job you've done. Okay. The right way is smaller, more consistent payments throughout the project. All right. I don't care if it's a 5, 10,000, 15,000, $20,000 job. I don't care if it's a million, 2 million. We need to be on manageable payment terms and better, small, easy to make payments. Okay. But you have to have a system for collecting those. You have to have discipline in collecting your money and following up and making sure that we have a procedure that flows perfectly for our collections. Otherwise, all right, we are volunteering to be the bank. Now, I don't know about any of you guys, but I'm certainly not the bank. I don't think there's too many corporations that can afford to be, but you are lending money to your customers. That's a high risk game, all right, with very little reward. So we need to think about this. Okay. These are easy things to address and to fix. And if somebody's not willing to work with you on collections and payment terms, don't work with them. Period. Okay. So let's make this easy. Let's make this simple for everyone here to understand in terms of a framework to grow your business, expand, you know, responsibly without the chaos, right? Number one, first and foremost, know your numbers. Don't take on projects, all right, where you can't accurately estimate and compare to actual outcomes and results. If you can't do that, you have no business expanding or growing your business. All right. You would be better to stay small and fix this core problem. Okay. If you're not disciplined enough to do job costing, if you're not, then do me a favor, get out of the way, right? Just go get a job somewhere. You're neglecting your first and foremost responsibility and you're hurting other contractors who are because you're always going to be in a position where you're underpricing, underquoting, not making a profit. And listen, 93% of contractors in this business work for less than a 10% return. For all this risk, a 10% return, I think that's you'd be again, put your money in the stock market, dude. You can get better returns anywhere for that. Okay, but here we are with all this risk, all this burden that we carry around with us. All right. And then by not knowing our numbers, we can't fix our pricing. All right. We can't adjust to the markets. And then we make excuses like everyone's undercutting me. Everybody's, I can't get a job. You name it. We can trace most of them back to the first two things, right? They then directly lead to the third problem, which is cash flow. All right. How do you manage cash flow if you don't know your numbers? You don't have a good price, right? How do you manage that cash flow? Okay. The last part of this, when you understand those first three things and that you've addressed those first three things, we can systemize the operations. Okay. One of the lowest paying, most important roles you play in your business, all right, is operations. Okay. Now I can say for absolute certainty that most of the contractors I encounter were really great contractors and good with their hands and good creating a good product, have absolutely no business operating a business. All right. Until they build the systems, until they understand that it's not a need, not a nice to have. It's a need to have if you want to continue to be competitive. If you want to produce a profit and be the provider for your family, you need to systemize all of these things happening every day consistently. Okay. And then the profit first mindset. Okay. If we can do those five things, if we can work on those five things, all right, I promise you that no matter what, all right, your business is going to grow in a healthy way. Okay. We don't start jobs, we don't take on work unless we know our numbers. All right. Knowing our numbers is our first responsibility, but it directly leads to the fifth, right? We don't take on jobs we're not going to earn a profit on, right? And you have to think about where that margin is going to be. All right. I can tell you with absolute honesty and certainty, there is zero strategic advantage to being the middle price, the lowest price. There's zero strategic advantage. However, being the highest price and actually knowing it, all right, there is a strategic advantage, right? And let that sink in for you guys that are chronic underpricers, okay? And it has everything to do with all of the other five things that we're discussing, all right? Most of us, all right, are leaving a ton of money on the table. We're refusing to look in the areas of our business that we're uncomfortable with. We refuse to, you know, look at these things because we don't really want to know the answer, right? I know I did it for a long time. I didn't want to look at my account. I knew it wasn't good. All right. I just didn't want to fail. Okay. We have to change our mindset. We have to stay focused on the things that are going to bring real results. Okay. And provide us with confidence, allow us to move the business forward. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Okay. The other thing too is if you don't have,
9:39 available.
oh, if you don't have those five things, it's very hard to systemize or have somebody else systemize for you. Again, it's like driving with the brakes on. So, out of the last five things that I just brought up in the chat, if you'd be so inclined, drop with the one area that you are weakest at in the chat, guys. Let's get you guys involved here. What's one of these five things that you're the weakest at or that you're struggling with? Okay. So let's talk about the advantages to fixing these things. Okay. Again, a lot of us put up roadblocks for ourselves and we make excuses. This isn't a place for excuses. This isn't a place for us to point fingers and do what is easy and saying, if I just had this or I need to get this before I can do that. Like none of that stuff rolls with me. Okay. And I know it from doing it myself. All right. That it ends up putting you further behind. So what could happen? Right? What could be the outcome? So I'm going to take Mike as my example. All right. Went from struggling to clear payroll almost weekly, not being able to meet his payroll, doing a million two, not being able to meet his payroll, right? Having loss in labor, overpaying in labor. Okay. And just in the last 9 months that we've been working with me has 150K in the bank, clear after taxes. Okay. He's going to probably hit under $1 million. For most of us, all right, especially, guys that have been struggling, that's ideal, right? He also paid himself a full salary, paid himself $100,000. He took 6 weeks of vacation, 6 weeks. He hadn't taken a vacation in 15 years. His kids are 10 and 11. All right. He was able to take his kids on a real vacation. He was able to spend time with his wife and got away from the business. All right. To him, right now where his business is at $1 million, which is easy to achieve with just about everybody, 150K in the bank, never had a dime before that, not missing any payrolls. Okay. This is a far better outcome in a very short period of time, right? So, if you're on this call and you've experienced these things, all right, I want you to think back to those five things that I brought up. Which one are you struggling with? Right? Because if we can fix one of those or those five things, right, you could be in this exact position within 9 months or even sooner. All right. A lot of times it's just one of those things being out of place, right? Again, like I said, I have plenty of clients that we've just fixed their cash flow problems. We've just changed their payment terms. And then boom, right? All of a sudden their bank accounts start filling up and the C and D clients go away. The ones that were bloodsuckers and using them, the ones that would rip them off in payments and cause them all the grief. Guess what, guys? That's only 20% of your customer base, right? The rest of them are probably more than willing to meet these payment requirements, more than willing to pay what the job is worth. We just have to cut away that 20% that is causing us all these problems. And you'll be surprised. They're very identifiable, right? So again, how many of you guys can relate to it? I used to be busy, broke, no time for the kids, no time for, family, no time for ourselves. Okay, just rushing, running around and nothing to show for it. Okay. So let's talk about how you can start to take immediate, imperfect action today. And I like imperfect action because taking action and doing something, all right, will always trump doing nothing at all. Okay, so these are the three things that we could do today that are going to help us to get closer to achieving any one of these five things, right? So we can review our last three jobs. Very simply, did you profit or just cover cost, right? Again, be honest. Look at those things. Nothing else matters. If you're not looking at your profit on these jobs, how do you make changes? How do you prevent the problems from reoccurring? Right? We're doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again until we eventually run out of steam, energy, or something bad happens. Okay? The other thing, anybody that has clients that owe them money, pick up the phone and call them now for their overdue invoice. Let's get it collected today. Okay? The other one, for you guys doing contracts, require a higher upfront deposit. Don't start a single job until you have a deposit in hand, right? It's required on every single job, right? Again, you should be starting with 30% or 20%, following through with 40% the second you start that job, all right? The rest of the 10 or 15% halfway through and 5 to 10% at the end. Okay? I've had the most success with that. You do your own. If you're doing with commercial clients, there's other things that you can do as well in terms of, ownership over the payment apps. There's plenty of ways to improve this, but you have to be committed to seeing it as the most important thing to do, right? We can all just start by requiring a deposit. Another false limiting belief, if you're in commercial, right, or you're working B2B, that you can't get a deposit. That is absolute bullshit. I've proven it more than enough times. I've done large scale, even public projects where we've demanded the deposit before we start. Okay. And lo and behold, even if they have AIA documents and all of that, that can be negotiated, right? Not signing certain contracts that are not in your favor, like when you sign with a general and it's paid when get paid. Do not sign that shit. You're putting your business at risk and you're offering to be the bank. You're offering to absorb the risk that the contractor is absorbing. You are taking that on the chin and basically allowing them to take full scale advantage of you. All right. Paid when get paid means that anything could happen on that job, anything at all. The plumber could snap a pipe or what, you name it, and you're not getting paid as a result. Not because you did bad work, not because you didn't deliver. It's because anything is happening. You are absorbing that general contractor's risk. I see it over and over again, and it's a very quick way to find yourself in bankruptcy. Again, be careful of the contracts that you sign. I would prefer you to sign any. Oh, what's that? Okay. So I have a belief here, guys, that nothing is real until you write it down. Okay. So which of the three of the quick wins are you guys going to commit to today? Give me throw it in the chat. Let me know what are the three things that you can easily take care of today for a quick win,
Mhm.
right? Call to collect. Perfect. Book items. Yep. Absolutely. Okay. What are the three things that we can commit to? Job costing. All of these things, by the way, picking up the phone and following up on a collections. Is that a complicated thing for you guys to do? Nope. It's just something we don't do because we don't like doing it. Okay. You know your numbers. Do you actually know profit margin from last month? How many of you guys actually know what your profit margin was on all the work you did last month? Is there anybody here that actually knows their margin? Yikes. Okay. Therefore, we shouldn't be upset if we don't make the money that we expected or that we deserve, right? Because none of you guys are actually aware of it, right? It's in the books. So if it's in the books, all right, great. That's awesome. Do you know it? Are you aware of it?
Tammy Abraham, Mario. Joao Mario, ters tarafta.
Okay. Oop. Wait, guys, I clicked off my thing here. Okay. What's your number one financial frustration right now? And I bet you, I'll bet you a good point. It's one of those three things that we just discussed, right? How many of you guys are depending on your bookkeeper, your accountant, all right, your wife, your admin to provide you with this information, your profitability? How many of you guys are relying on that? And that's how we're running our business.
Sure.
Okay. Not know my actual profit per project. Yes, sir. Okay. So therefore, if you don't know these numbers and you haven't reviewed them and you don't have a discipline in place to actually review them and face that risk, how do you make a data-driven decision? And how do you know where to change things? How do you know you have a pricing issue? How do you know, all right, that this was even worth it? You don't, right? You cannot manage what you cannot measure. And profit is the first thing you need to be able to manage. How do you do that if you're not measuring? It's impossible. All we can do is guess. All we can
I
do
gotta run.
is
I
put
gotta put the
ourselves
trash
back
in.
in the same insane situation, right?
Yes, yes, good.
So if we were to do any one of the three action items today, all right, I can promise you and discipline them and made that a part of our process over the next 30 days. I can almost promise you, after seeing many hundreds of clients experience this, all right, that you will become more confident. You will have a better understanding of your business. And guess what? You will be more profitable. Okay. If you don't know what that profit is, if you don't know, what's causing you to lose money or where the holes in your bucket are, okay, there's no reason to be in business at all. You may as well get away from this risk and move on to something else. Get yourself a nice job where somebody else can do those things. Okay? Because again, we have enough blind contractors running around out there that you're just a part of the problem. Okay? So, I don't know how many of you guys are comfortable enough, but I'd love to do a Q&A right now and ask me anything about pricing, cash flow, or systems. Okay, you can chat with me in the chat if you'd like, if you're shy, or unmute yourself and let's have a conversation. Let's make some commitments here to change. All right, not repeating the same thing over and over again. Systems. Cool. Right? What's your question for systems? Okay. How do I find the right systems to put in place? Great, great. I just gave you the systems right there. So the first system, job costing. If you're not doing job costing at a basic level, okay, and if you need job costing training, we're happy to provide it to you. There's tons of it out there, but that's the first step to understanding your profit at a fundamental base level. Don't wait for your QuickBooks, your accounting, your bookkeeper. Those will inevitably allow you to have an excuse. All right. We need to be focusing on our job costing. That's again can be done in a spreadsheet on every single job that gets started. And that's just very simply comparing what you priced, estimated, versus what it actually cost. Plain and simple. So the right system first, job cost, all right, sales systems, all of these things work off of being profitable first. All right. So to answer your question, it would be your operation system, your financial operation systems. If you don't got those, you can't build anything else. Is there an effective way to know the competition is charging or shouldn't be concerned? Yeah. So great question. You will find that it doesn't matter. All right. So yes, there are ways that you can check out what the competition is charging. All right. It's called a SWOT analysis. If you are um, if you're interested in that, we've got training where basically you will analyze your competition's pricing. But what we find the most often that doesn't matter. Okay. Here's the reality. 93% of contractors are out there doing it for less than 10% net profit. Is that really so again, just it's a game of odds here. I guarantee if you look at that contractor that's next to you, he's probably making even less than you are. He's probably just as unorganized, and I see it across the board day in, day out. Okay. So what we need to be committed to is us making the profit that we deserve in our business. Okay. It's an internal process. All right. Eh,
Can you expand on that, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely. So, who believes here that price is a weapon? Anybody here consider price being a weapon and knowing your numbers being a weapon? Let me give you an example. Okay. I don't worry about losing jobs because someone charged less than me. I only worry about losing jobs where somebody came in and charged more than me. Okay. I'm not trying to be the lowest person in the market. I'm not trying to impress people with how low I can go, but I know my pricing so intimately because I know what my break even is on every job. We start with that. That's automatic. I know here's what it's going to cost me if I do nothing else. Everything else above that, all right, that's the gauge that you use. It's the lever you pull. All right. So let me give you an example of this. In my business, I long committed to sales and marketing. Therefore, I get a high volume of leads. We have good clients. We're locked in. So I can charge a little bit more than most people could ever imagine getting away with. But I didn't get there overnight. What I'm able to do is I work off supply and demand. Okay. So my margin, all right, goes up on my demand. Meaning, if I've got 3 months of backlog, I'm raising my margin until it comes back down. All right. I'm not keeping my price at the same price. All right. Month to month. Okay. It's going up and it's fluctuating with the market. Okay. When you know your numbers, that's the lever, right? For example, what I see most contractors do, all right, is they keep their price at the same rate all the way through. Now, sometimes in the beginning of the year, maybe the market's a bit lower than what you're charging. And you may be overcharging for the supply and demand in the market, right? Again, I'm in roofing. March, terrible time to price jobs because there's every roofer that's come out of hibernation that's underpricing because they think that's what they need to do to get jobs. Okay. So the market rate is lower There's lots of competition there. All right, no problem, not an issue. All right. What happens though is that the demand then rises higher the following month in April. Okay. Meaning that guys acquire these low paying, low profit jobs fighting each other, all right, and leave a whole bunch of more opportunity for us to go in and close bigger jobs. And I'm looking to fill my backlog, right? So I'm at that 3 month backlog. When I get above it, I'm actually raising my margin. By the end of the year, like right now, the demand in the market, so people again are looking to get this work done in September to Christmas. They're trying to get all these projects in. Demand's going to rise. By December, my margin will be at like 65%. Okay. So my margin's going up with that demand. I'm not just keeping my numbers static. All right. Therefore, I'm always maximizing my profits. Okay. I'm matching that to demand and I'm looking at those key indicators, which is sales. What's your sales closing ratio? All right. Are you staying within a 30 or 40% ratio? Right. And then you will find that there's sweet spots in the market. Okay, you will know how to price it, all right, based on your data, based on your historic data as well, right? So again, what's the average price you've gotten in March? What's the average price you've gotten in June, July? Like if you look at that carefully and you're always trying to push that up and fill your backlog, you're gonna be the master of pricing, right? And that's a weapon.
But I think my question was like something different. It was more around the psychology of pricing and how
Yeah.
a lot of people base their price on market pricing.
Yeah, so again, it's because they don't have a system for knowing that. They don't have the confidence, right? So they're taking external data, like what they think they will get, all right? What the other guys are charging, and they're not using their internal, they don't have that internal system to validate those prices, right? So again, it's just like the way that you know how stock markets are changed, right? There's like different levels of confidence. You ever seen that? Okay, so the same thing goes, but you're dictating that price. All right. And then what ends up eventually happening is as you grow, because you're profitable and you will grow, you have more money for marketing, more money for leads, more money to do things. All right. You then dictate the market price. You become a regional price dictator, right? You're the highest guy in the market. Perfect. All right. So you're leading that price. Does that make sense? And again, the psychology to it is look at your data. Your internal numbers are going to tell you the truth. All right. Your numbers don't lie. All right. What other people are saying and what customers are saying, that that isn't a control. That's a variable, right?
Mhm.
So you look at your controls. What controls do you have? I know what I'm successfully getting at 30% closing
So the
ratio.
so the reason people price based on the market or
Hmm.
what they hear the market's going for
Yep.
is because they don't know their own numbers.
It starts with that.
Confident. They're not
So
confident in their
they're
own
not
numbers.
confident. They don't have a system. So again, and they aren't able to challenge other systems in their business. So again, here's this scenario. You go out and you focus on improving sales. All right. You focus on closing better. You focus on your marketing. You focus on these other areas. How do you validate that that was successful or not? Take any key area.
There's a bunch of metrics you could.
No, there's only one, right? If you focused on your marketing and sales, your profitable sales should go up.
Sure.
Okay.
Or
All
your
right,
prices
cool.
go up.
So then the resistance to getting that price is going to go down, right? So this is what most people discover is that, hey, we start off with knowing our numbers first. We can't do it for what, like, we can't do it any less than 20%, like net profit. Like, if you are doing it for less than that, you can't grow a business. You're not even in business at all. You are literally trading dollars, right? And it's simple math. If I'm going to do $1 million worth of work and I have less than $200,000 to show for it at the end of the day, all right, that's too much risk and not enough reward. Okay. So then
Mhm.
we start looking at 33%. Now that profit is actually paying for the improvements in your business. Okay. So most of us need to be in that 33% net just to be, to grow a business. All right. To be in an expansion point. So your job is to get to that point. Now, the top contractors, guys that are the top 2%, are finding themselves at 50, 60, 70% net growth, like net profit,
That's
like net after
crazy.
everything. It's not crazy. I'd show you jobs right now where we're 45, 50, like at low demand areas. In March, we were selling those. Okay. But that has everything to do with challenging that number and finding those pockets where you can get those numbers. But what most guys do is they try to bulldoze everyone with the same price. They don't know their numbers, right? Or they make decisions based on their feelings at the time. Oh, I don't have enough work in my pipeline. Oh, I better underprice this one. And then they sell a bunch of unprofitable work. All right. All gut decisions. Then they're stuck with this and they think they're busy. They're not. I see it day in and day out, right? So again, this helps us to be under control. It helps us to be disciplined. If you don't know what that break even number is and where you should be, you can't adjust. All right. Same thing when materials go up, they miss all those things. Like again, our prices are always fluctuating, right? There's so many variables in this business. So that's why you need to become a master of pricing, right? Master that, and it's not hard, it's not complicated, okay, but it does require discipline, right? And then again, you will very quickly find that the equilibrium in the markets move up and down, and it's all about beating those odds. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Yep. They're busy but still broke. Absolutely. This is the recipe for it, guys. Again, I can't stress it enough. If you don't want to be broke, all right, you don't want to, again, that's a decision. Those are choices that you've made, all right, to accept a project or to do work for less than what it's worth to you at the end of the day. So I always like to think about it this way. All right. If I'm going to go out and I'm going to get up in the morning and take all the risks that I do in my business, all right, I'm not doing that for less than 30% of the gross or the net profit. I'm not doing that. I've set that standard. I've set that benchmark and I haven't had to, all right, for 5, 6 years. People don't believe us like that. And it goes higher than that because I'm profit first mindset, right? I'm not here to do charity work. Again, if there's demand in the market that I can fulfill, I'm going to do it at the highest possible price. All right. And guess what? My business thrives because of that. You can't thrive being the lowest price guy. You can't win on volume, especially at a low, unless you're doing 10 million or 12 million and you've got, regional or provincial or state control or some other special conditions. You can't thrive in that. All right. You're just treading water. Yeah. Any other questions around pricing and psychology? That's a great one, by the way. Thank you for hope I somewhat explained that well.
I got a suggestion, a random suggestion.
Sure.
So I watched your client testimonial the other day,
Yep.
uh, with Jonathan.
Yep.
Yeah, it was super inspiring.
Thanks, man.
I think what would be cool is like, because I'm pretty competitive, and I'm sure a lot of other contractors here are competitive.
Hmm.
If we did like a leaderboard in the school community.
Yep. Yeah. So, and with you again, it's funny because you're bringing this up and I love it. But we do benchmarks here. So what we talked about this week about benchmarking your results, I take everybody's and the national benchmarks. All right. And we compare those. That's your scorecard. All right. And we do have a leaderboard for that. So again, I can't use companies like names and their financials. Like I can't disclose any of that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
What'd you
But
break now?
nothing. But again, we use benchmark so you can see where you stand in comparison in all areas of the business, by the way. It's not just one, right? And that to me has moved majority of our customers forward because we all have to challenge the thoughts and decisions we're making. Okay. So again, a limiting belief is I can't charge more. I'm charging too much already, right? Or let's say you are charging too much and you can't sell a job to save your soul. Okay, great. If I improve another area in my business, if I improve my closing, if I change my customer, how do you validate those things to know if you're on track or off track? Right? These are the things that leave us blind, is that we don't actually know where the problem is. Okay, we can only speculate. And what we do is we end up getting a shiny object, like, oh, I'm going to, I'm going to get a new marketing agency. Now I'll get more leads, so I'll be okay. That's the mindset, right? Meanwhile, the whole time, even if they get more leads, they're just sinking their ship faster because they don't know those numbers, right? So again, it's important that you look at every area of your business, and as you set up systems, as you put in processes, that you can measure those for success, right? That's the game we play here. And it's hard, right? Because again, you may not have a certain thing, and we have to put those benchmarks in place. But I mean, we're on the track with it now. What system can you implement for general contractors? A system that covers A to Z. Great question. The first one, and if you've been around for a while, management accounting. Okay. So I'm sure everyone's going to roll their eyes that have been hearing me for, I'll say it over and over and over again. Management accounting is different than regulatory accounting. Okay. So your regulatory accounting system, all right, is everything you do to report your income to the government. That's your QuickBooks, your accountant, your bookkeeper. All right. Anybody that thinks they can run their business with that function only is out of your tree. In the construction business, you cannot. Okay. Period. Full stop. Right. Accountant and bookkeeper will never tell you that you're underpricing. They'll never help you to see cash flow. They're not trained. They're not capable. I've yet to see one that can do it, even though they claim it. Okay. The most important system for a general contractor to have control of is what we call management accounting. Okay. Management accounting is everything from your cost code, the thing you estimate with, all the way to your schedule, your cash flow projections, your job costing, all in one synchronized system. If you can master that management accounting process, you will win as a general contractor because it's impossible to lose. Okay? Period. Full stop. Again, I can prove this over and over again. And that is the core. You do not grow sales until you have management accounting in place. And again, that's the principles we work here at Contractor AI. We have lots of things that can accelerate sales. I have lots of things that can help you sell better, faster, help you serve your customers, but I cannot fix the one thing, all right, unless you are willing to do the hard work, and that's management accounting. Everybody here, again, or in one form or another at our different levels, once you master that, you master business, right? The rest is easy. The rest is simple. Okay, they're logical decisions. Increase sales, like all of that stuff comes from the first system. And general contractors, especially because of the amount of variables that you have, right? Anybody doing, again, you can get by doing single trades, with half the systems a general contractor can. You cannot thrive as a general contractor without a management accounting
See you
system,
later. Thank you.
right? And for record here, if you're a general contractor, we use JobTread. We help to implement that. That's my product of choice. There's many others out there, Buildertrend, all of those ones. I don't care how you do it. I mean, we have spreadsheets. We have like every form of it. All right. My personal choice and the one that I work with contractors on is a product called JobTread. Again, look into it. We help set up those systems as well. But that's your core, your base. Everything else is built on top of your management accounting system. Okay. So, before I bore everybody to death with these, if you are struggling with these systems in your business and you're looking for help in fixing that, more than happy to have a game plan call with you, map these things out, help you to get a clear picture of your direction that you'd like to take. All right, no obligation to us. It's simply just a game plan to see, what you need to do to get yourself unstuck. All right. If you choose to work with us, great. If not, no big deal. If you want to book a call with me, feel free. I've thrown my link there in the chat. All right. Check out our case studies. Again, hopefully you guys are thinking about how to make your lives easier and not harder. We're focusing on the real elephant in the room is why don't I have cash in the bank? All right. Hey, any other questions before we wrap this baby up, guys? Anything else I can help you with?
Cash in the bank.
Cash in the bank. Listen, show me your bank account and we'll see what's up, right? We'll understand. Show me your numbers. Show me your control. right?
That's your new
Again, those
slogan.
are
That's your new slogan.
yeah. Actually, I shouldn't say that technically. Bank accounts are a bad read of if you're doing well or not. That's a lagging indicator, right? So a leading indicator is your control in your finances, right? So again, if you've got a high level of control and you're investing in your business, your bank account still can be small, but if you don't have those management accounting processes in place, I know it's impossible for you to be running a well-oiled machine. Impossible. Literally, like statistically impossible. Right? Cream, cash rules everything. Yeah, absolutely. Love that. It absolutely does. Cash is king, right? So again, our relationship with cash, our relationship with the systems that allow us to confidently make decisions, right? Notice I use the word confidence, allows us to be the predators in our market. Other than that, you are the prey. Okay, guys like me come along and put you out of business. All right. I have unfair advantages over you because I know my numbers. I know where I need to pull levers. I know where I need to make adjustments. I don't have to guess, right? Either do my clients. We figure this stuff out, right? It all comes down to discipline, right? Getting these things in place, being a good business owner, being dedicated to profit, all right, and doing the work that gets you there. Cool. All right. No other questions? All right, guys. Have a great night. Hope you thanks for sharing this time with you.